would be difficult to imagine two countries that have contributed more to the development of world civilization than Greece and Turkey. Both neighbors on opposite sides of the Aegean are inheritors of ancient imperial and cultural legacies. Throughout this rich history, tensions and conflicts have marred the relationship between these two great nations. In recent decades, problems ranging from the definition of territorial sea to the resolution of the painfully divided island of Cyprus have prevented normal relations between Turkey and Greece. The post-war vision of a Europe united, democratic, and at peace cannot be realized until Greece and Turkey come together. However, memories of brutality on both sides remain deeply entrenched. From generation to generation, there was a cultural imperative to seek revenge. Change has seemed unthinkable. 1 year ago, the unthinkable began to happen.
In political life, personal relations are sometimes crucial to achieve results. Many agreements are possible when there is an empathy among people or between two ministers, as it is the case. And I think that the two have been really crucial to improve the relations and to create this new environment in the area.
Tonight, nearly 1,000 prominent Europeans and Americans have gathered to honor the two individuals whose leadership is at the heart of this change. The EastWest Institute salutes İsmail Cem and George Papandreou. The initial turning point came in early 1999. George Papandreou took office as Foreign Minister of Greece in the aftermath of Kurdish separatist leader Abdullah Öcalan's return to Turkey. Extreme nationalists on both sides were ready to exploit the arrest for their respective purposes.
This morning, Kurdish demonstrators vented their fury on the Greek embassy in London. One woman.
However, Papandreou and Cem each came to a dramatically different conclusion. Although very different in temperament, background, and experience, each man was disposed toward compromise rather than confrontation. Each was prepared to combine idealism with pragmatism where their country's interests were concerned, and each came to understand that at this critical juncture, his counterpart was prepared to take risks for peace. What could have been another diplomatic imbroglio, further poisoning relations, was averted. Ironically, the first catalyst was the war in Kosovo. After the breakdown of negotiations with President Milosevic, NATO began its air campaign. Again, both foreign ministers realized that they had an urgent new reason to cooperate. Turkey wanted to come to the aid of the Kosovo refugees, but without a common border, it could do so only if Greece agreed. Greece did agree, and for the first time permitted Turkish military planes to fly over the country, carrying humanitarian aid and relief supplies to the Kosovo refugees. Once the Kosovo war ended, the two foreign ministers decided to keep the momentum of cooperation going. They agreed to work on a number of initiatives that had low policy significance but potentially high value in both practical and symbolic terms. The second catalyst came in August when a devastating earthquake hit Turkey. On hearing the first reports of the catastrophe, Papandreou telephoned to Cem and asked, "What can we do?" Cem said, "We need rescue workers." Immediately, the Greek government sent rescue teams, led by EMOC, whom we recognize tonight, as well as firefighters, and even military units trained in rescue operations.
We welcome all of Greek peoples. It is an honor and pleasure for us to see their team in this earthquake
Papandreou told his countrymen, "We have problems with Turkey, but this is a humanitarian problem, so we are going to help." The public response to his statement astonished him. No one had expected it. Greek citizens started calling and asking where to give blood, food, and money.
We think that we are friends with these people. There is nothing between us. We are here to help them.
The reaction in Turkey was a combination of surprise and profound gratitude. Turkish media gave wide publicity to the work of the Greek teams. At the same time, other countries took part in the rescue efforts, including 2 specialized American teams from Fairfax County, Virginia, and Miami-Dade, Florida, whom we also recognize tonight. A month later, earthquakes struck Athens as well. The Turks immediately responded by sending reciprocal help, led by the Akut Search and Rescue Society and by the Enka Corporation, which undertook a unique private sector aid effort, both of whom we recognize tonight. In both countries, the consequences of these actions soon came to be called seismic diplomacy. Public opinion in Turkey and Greece was remarkably positive, but the concern in both countries was whether this warming of relations would last. The third catalyst came about at the European Union's Helsinki summit meeting last December. At this historic gathering, hosted by our own co-chairman, President Matti Ahtisaari, Greece joined other EU members in voting to accept Turkey's official candidacy for membership. As a result, as we enter the new millennium, the 2 countries have the prospect of one day being fellow members of the European Union, offering a second major framework along with NATO. The next step came in the early months of this year when reciprocal visits were made by our honorees. Papandreou visited Ankara in late January, the first visit by a Greek foreign minister in 40 years. In Ankara, Papandreou placed his government seal of approval on an unprecedented series of agreements on tourism, environmental protection, citizen security, and the safeguarding of investments. In early February, Cem visited Athens and signed 5 equally historic agreements focusing on science and technology, cooperation in maritime transport, heightened economic cooperation, education, and the prevention of customs violations. As Cem noted in Athens, our governments accomplished within the last 6 months more than in the last 40 years.
Southeastern Europe is the most conflict-plagued area of Europe. A lot of unresolved disputes that arise out of the collapse of empires and the collapse of communism. The crisis that occurred in 1974 in Cyprus, with its antecedents, has left an enduring tension in the Eastern Mediterranean between 2 important NATO allies. The foreign ministers of those 2 countries, my good friends Ismail Cem and George Papandreou, who are here tonight to receive this great award from the EastWest Institute, have done an enormous amount to try to reach out to one another, to build bridges between 2 communities that have historically been so deeply intertwined.
It's very important to have good examples of tolerance, of understanding, of the need of peoples to live together, to work together, and to find common solutions for their problems. It would be much more easy for each of them, in relation to their public opinions, to have a tougher stance. And I think they have been very brave in creating the conditions for this new, better relationship.
I think what the examples of George Papandreou and Ismail Cem show us is that you can take careful, mutually beneficial steps without forgetting the past, but not being governed by it.
Each foreign minister has reason to believe that continued cooperation will produce practical results. Indeed, their efforts at having the two flags waved together, in Cem's phrase, and trying to get beyond psychological taboos, in Papandreou's words, have already had a substantial effect.
In the decades since the collapse of communism, it's probably easy to say that most leadership seems to come from the grassroots. But what's interesting is that there are examples of people like our honorees tonight who are willing to blend the simple or the basic fundamentals of leadership. That is, a vision, a willingness to take risk, to pursue that vision, and a remarkable sense of understanding the tactics of how to go after opportunities to make things happen. For those reasons, we're honoring Papandreou and Cem this evening.
There's enormous potential good that could come out of this for the people of Greece, the people of Turkey, the people of Cyprus, and the friends of all of them in the freedom-loving world. And so I'm very excited about it and very hopeful.
Tonight, all of us from both sides of the Atlantic stand together to salute Ministers Papandreou and Cem for their vision and courage. This process will not only benefit the peoples of Greece and Turkey, but will provide an ultimately irresistible example for the leadership of Southeastern Europe, many of whom are here tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, the EastWest Institute invites you to join with us in expressing our heartfelt appreciation and respect to two extraordinary individuals, Ismail Cem and George Papandreou.